r/AskReddit by Reddify. NSFW forensic scientists of Reddit. What is the most WTF case that you ever had? X digital forensics. Drug dealers love taking photos of their girlfriends in their underwear. They also love taking photos of their stash. The genius is hardly ever turn of location services. So each photo is geotagged. I dated a drug dealer and he did take a lot of photos of me in my underwear. He also always texted me photos of him building little animals out of weed and toothpicks. So I suppose in a way you are exactly right. That's oddly adorable. The building part. I don't get it. But I'm smiling. A lot of times family would rather you declare it a suicide instead of death by autoerotic asphyxiation. Edit. I would like to add that I'm not a forensic scientist. I just interned for a crime lab and always thought it was dug up. Yep. Dude from my high school committed suicide and the school even has a day set aside to wear orange to honor the kid's death. But it turns out he wasn't suicidal. Just trying to get off while using a belt and couldn't get the belt off either. His parents found him in his room naked with a belt 45 minutes later. He wasn't suicidal. Just trying to get off while using a belt and couldn't get the belt off either. He should have spent more time in foreplay. Father-in-law is a cop. Years ago, he got called to a scene of a suicide by hanging. The body had been there for a while. Apparently the deceased had managed to do quite a bit of damage to his neck vertebrae because his spine had snapped and his neck stretched down several feet from the noose. The cops at the scene took pictures of giraffe neck and passed them around the department. Somehow, my wife saw the pictures when she was at the tender age of 12. Which screwed her up good enough to be a suitable mate for a guy like me. Always good to hear a happy ending. Even if it's a stretch. Not me but my professor. This young kid, teen Aish, was playing with a loaded gun and accidentally shot himself in the face. He then tried to write "help me" on the wall with his blood. So sad. We saw the scene photos for class. Edit. Wow. Okay, my most upvoted comment and it's not even my case. For those who have questions, all the details of the case were never discussed, including where it happened, name, or circumstances surrounding it. A lot of cases my prof didn't even know the final outcome, so we heard a lot of interesting cases, but never knew where they went. I ended up in an FS lab, so no CS for me. Why did he write it on the wall? His mind was elsewhere. Prof showed a case where a guy committed suicide by holding two forks on a table, then proceeded to headbang towards it. Stuck both his eyes in. Inhales sharply through teeth. Exhales dully through fingernails. Self-inflicted GSW. Pistol in each hand. One entrance wound, one exit wound. Two spent shell casings. Neighbors report to shots fired. No bullet holes in ceiling. Walls. Furniture. Windows. Nothing. Sat at the scene for an hour with me and two officers searching everything. But the bullets never turned up. Still scratching my head. Edit. Okay, Reddit detectives. Calm yourselves. It was a definite textbook suicide W/motive and signed suicide note. One gun in each hand. Each fired by the deceased. No nearby windows. No open doors. No wounded victims running away into the night. Nothing was moved. There wasn't a murder. It's strange that the search turned up no bullet holes. But there are details about the deceased that would solve it for you guys that I'm not going to post online for the sake of his anonymity. Edit. Jesus guys. No open windows. There is a very large difference between an entrance and an exit wound. And he was definitely not moved. Long forgotten saints weep unheard tears for my inbox. One blank, one bullet. He wanted to go out ducking with everyone. Blanks have very different shell casings. Not a forensic scientist. But I majored in anthropology with a focus on forensic anthropology. Given that, I was a fairly regular reader of the Forensic Science Quarterly. Here are a couple that I remember. Kid found on top of an elevator in a 6-story dorm. Apparently he was elevator surfing, which is just as dumb as it sounds. He somehow got his head caught in the cables and got it twisted around a couple of times. This did not immediately kill him. He died from asphyxiation. This means he had anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes to contemplate what had happened to him before he lost consciousness. Another one was sort of a mystery case. Headless corpse found in a truck in a national park. No head was to be found in the immediate area. Truck was turned on, but had run out of gas. The wound was very clean. No sawing. Almost like a guillotine cut. The investigating authorities were rather confused. But eventually they found a receipt in his pocket for 50 yards of nylon rope. They widened the investigation, and eventually found the rope tied to a tree with a noose at one end. Further searching of this area eventually turned up the head. Pretty unique method of suicide. Mystery solved. This one isn't from the magazine, but a story personally related to me from the officer involved. A call comes in for a 50-ish black woman dead in a garage. Investigation reveals it is actually a 35-year-old white male. Dude put on a dress, rigged a noose to his garage door opener, and proceeded to watch some porn in his garage while choking himself with the garage door opener. Battery in the remote died. And then so did he. Another case that sticks in my memory is of a guy that decided to kill himself with a .3006 and a .308. For you non-gun people, those are two very powerful calibers. Literally overkill. Anyway, this guy manages to get two rifles under his chin and fire them at the same time while lying on his bed. This obliterates his head. I mean, like there was nothing left but a stump. That isn't why the case sticks with me. However, what happened next is that the local forensic department decides to reconstruct the head as an exercise. They collect every piece except for the orbital sockets, which evaporated, and put them all back together. The result came out looking very much like the victim, although slightly bug-eyed. The before and after of that is something I don't think I'll ever forget. I'm very interested in seeing the reconstruction comparison pics. Google yielded nothing. If Bones has taught me anything, you can just reconstruct the face from the eye socket and a strand of hair by scanning them with your phone. A friend of mine is a forensic scientist and her department dealt with burglary cases only, usually generating pretty uninteresting stuff to tell people. But her only good story is that once she got a pair of gloves found at the crime scene. She went to examine them and felt that there was something hard inside. She turned the gloves up to get it out, and out falls a thumb, ripped off at the first joint. Apparently this particular burglar was holding up a safe while his mate went underneath it, dropped the safe on his hands, ripped his hands out and ran. They obviously caught the guy, who, note to self, never lift heavy things ever again. Not a forensic scientist, but a true story is good all the same. Officer I used to know was telling me of this kid's suicide. The parents had left for the day and the kid decided enough is enough. He grabbed his dad's shotgun and sat down on the sofa with the shotgun in his mouth. He pulled the trigger. Blood, brain, and teeth covered the entire room and ceiling. The blast created a huge hole in the back of his head. Since the gun was in his mouth, he just sort of slid down the barrel. The parents come home and walk in to see their son sitting on the couch, shotgun in his mouth with the barrel protruding out of the back of his skull. That sounds like a ducking Tarantino scene. Holy it, I didn't expect this much response to this. Reminded me more of Needful Things by Stephen King. There's a scene almost exactly like it in the book. It's bananas. Edit, if to have. Nothing too weird, yet but lem tell you. Every crime scene I've been to, ducking spludge everywhere. See men in the carpet. See men in the corpse. See men in the curtains. See men in the beard. I don't think you should be jerking off at a crime scene. I can't help it. They're so exciting. Attended a lecture by a pathologist once who asked us what household item someone had managed to kill themselves with: a toothbrush, a rubber band, or a matchstick. He went on to tell us that a man had killed himself accidentally while trying to clean his ear out with a matchstick, punctured a blood vessel, painted a wall with his own blood, passed out and bled out on the sofa. I will never use a bobby pin again. Piper hated that. Man. 40 YO. Kills wife and children with army rifle, old model. Circa 3000 joules muzzle energy. Puts the muzzle under the chin and fires. The bullet takes half the face away. Blood drops lead to bathroom. In front of the mirror. Then to the ammo box. and finally to the place of a second and last shot to the head. And a case of someone found dead from a gunshot, wound to the heart, on a bridge. Without any weapon, bullet or cartridge case. Circumstantial evidence finally indicated a suicide. But we still don't know how he got the weapon to float away. The bottom of the river was searched, and nothing was found, except the tools of the bridge builders. Edit 1. I see the second case inspires a lot of people who suggest a way to make the weapon disappear. Be assured that a lot of possibilities were imagined and discussed during the inquiry. The problem is, and this is where reality separates from fiction, we must bring facts to the table, supported by the traces and evidence. So, someone taking the gun, a dozen of helium-filled balloons or a wooden floater tied to the gun are all possibilities. But as long as we don't have evidence backing them, they are pure speculation, as good as any other. Edit 2. For those of you that want some more forensic WTF and can read French, I recommend Ed Howard Launet's Van Freud et Cornichen, Crimes et Suicides Amoridi Raya. It's a compilation of the most bizarre cases published in forensic literature. Here's what he did. Take a ball of string and soak the first 10 inches in a large paper cup filled with water. With the string still in the cup, place the cup in a freezer. Once frozen, slide the ice block out of the paper cup. Cut the string so that there's at least 5 feet of loose string extending from the block of ice. Finally, tie the string to a revolver. Drive to a bridge. Dangle the block of ice over the edge of the bridge so it's hanging by the string. Press muzzle into chest. Pull trigger. Reflexively release revolver, which is then pulled up and over the bridge railing by the weight of the block of ice. Taking the cartridge with it, the gun falls into the water below. But rather than sinking to the bottom, it's buoyed by the ice block. Caught by the current, it is carried down river until the ice melts sufficiently to allow the gun to settle to bottom of the river far from the bridge or bulwarks. A friend is a psychologist whose previous life was in crime scene photography. She went to the scene of a suicide in a garage. This guy had a project car that he had worked on his whole life. When he decided to end it all, he wanted to go with the car. So he shut the garage and turned on the engine and waited. To top it off, he had taken a bunch of pain and sleeping pills. When my friend got there, it was a good while after his death. Entitled Monties and other specialists were there looking for details and whatnot. He was the VP of a fairly large chain of local businesses, so there was an insurance settlement to consider. My friend is in the middle of photographing the scene and the guy was laying there, pronounced dead hours ago, and he suddenly just shook hard. She thought it was a death rattle, so she kept taking pictures. Eventually the guy sat up and nodded and the entitled Monties were called back in to stabilize him and eventually save him. Apparently the car had run out of gas right at the moment he went out, and he was pronounced dead on the scene. He couldn't talk or do much, but he had actually survived. He couldn't talk or do much, but he had actually survived. One of the reasons I never offed myself when I was tempted. I wasn't sure I'd do it right, and I was way more afraid of failing than succeeding. Same here. I've been a nurse for 20+ years. I know how hard it is to do it right. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.